In this video, I wanted to share one of my attempts at replicating the nameplate hologram idea that is featured in the Graham Saxby book titled Practical Holography. So this particular hologram requires two different exposures, one for the name, which in this case is the LCARS computer interface, and another exposure for the object. So these two exposures are 180 degrees apart, and one of them is therefore pseudoscopic and the other is orthoscopic. What that means is that one of the exposures appears to be behind the plate and the other appears to be shown in front of the plate. So with that, I wanted to show kind of the process I used to create this hologram. So I created the LCARS graphic and then I generated an image transfer onto an acrylic plate from which we are then able to create an exposure. And for the object, I ordered a set of toy ships off of eBay. So you can see one of them here. And once I had that, then I determined the measurements of the object. And this allowed me to create a 3D printed mount for it where the silver halide plate can then rest directly on top of the object. So here's an example of what that looks like. Okay, so here are the two frames or mounts that I printed for this experiment. So here is the first one, and as you can see it has a bit of a shallow depth to it. The idea is that the silver halide plate sits directly on top of the LCARS graphic on the acrylic plate. And so here is a test fit. You can see the silver halide plate inserted into the frame. And the other thing that's nice about this is that the frame helps to prevent stray light entering the edges of the silver halide plate, which would otherwise cause reflections. So here is the silver halide plate resting on top of the acrylic plate. So again, that's a good fit. And the idea then is that is what you would do for the first exposure. Then you take out the silver halide plate and then you rotate it 180 degrees for the second exposure. So what that allows us to do then is to have that first exposure being orthoscopic and the second exposure pseudoscopic, which then makes it appear as though the toy ship is coming out in front of the plate. And here's the mount or the frame for the object, the toy ship. So here's what that looks like. So again, pretty decent setup for that. And the other thing I wanted to show is that I was also able to print a plate tower. So this is what that looks like as it's being printed. The plate tower allows me to position the plates at the desired height. So you can see what that looks like here. So this is just at a desired height off of the table. And here is another view showing illumination of the object. Now, I had a lot of difficulty with reflections. I kind of mentioned the idea of preventing stray light earlier. So this is one of my early test exposures. You can see these horizontal lines in the plate here, and that is again due to reflections. And as it turns out, it's not just the light coming in from the overhead mirror hitting the plate, but it's also reflections from the acrylic plate as well that can cause this. At least that's what I seem to have encountered. So I had to, of course, try to make sure that the light is p-polarized, which is a way of helping to minimize reflections if you also have the light coming in at what they call Brewster angle. So all that's to say, I was able to try to help minimize these reflections using a little bit of polarized light at the appropriate angle. So you can see here it's reflecting off the plate onto one of the walls here. And so that tells me that if it's doing that, it's also going to reflect onto the plate being exposed. So that's at a certain intensity level, and I was able to use a half-wave plate to adjust the polarization. So you can see it getting brighter and dimmer, that reflection getting brighter or dimmer on the wall as I adjust the polarization. So here's what that looks like after making adjustments to the polarization and helping to reduce the reflections. So a lot of those horizontal lines are now reduced quite significantly. So that's a huge improvement, and this is basically what I showed at the beginning of the video. Now, another thing I wanted to do was experiment with whether or not it was necessary to use acrylic plates in the first place. So I tried experimenting with just creating the artwork on paper here. This is a matte type of paper, and then just to see what that would look like, because this is, for one, it's a bit cheaper to do it this way, and secondly, it's also quicker rather than having to send it off to a service to create an image transfer. So here's what this looks like on a printed material. So again, exposing the plate, that's what that would look like here. And then the actual finished hologram using the paper source. It looks somewhat similar, but you can see that there's quite a shadow being displayed here. So when it does not have the ability to shine through, you instead have this shadow being captured. And here again for comparison is the acrylic plate, and so again we do not have any shadow shown in the display. So that's about it for this video. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.